You listen to EKKE's podcasts, produced by the National Center for Social Research of Greece. The workshop, Far-Right Extremism and Democracy in a Comparative Perspective, Europe and Latin America, took place in Athens, 11 to 13 September 2024, and was organized by the European Consortium for Political Research, Standing Groups Extremism and Democracy and Latin American Politics, EKKE and Panteion University. On the sidelines of the workshop, EKKE's podcasts recorded the thoughts and ideas of several participants. 4 thought-provoking questions were raised during the workshop's opening day. Is the far right a global phenomenon? What is causing it? What are the implications for democracy? What can we learn from comparing Europe and Latin America? These were also the focus of EKKE's podcasts, where our guests presented their ideas and arguments.
We now give the floor to Carlos Meledez, political scientist, professor at the University of Diego Portales of Chile.
We are 3 authors, Daphne, Elisa, and myself. My name is Carlos Meledez. We are political scientists and we are comparativists. We are experts on different regions of the world. Daphne in Europe, Lisa, she's from Italy, but her work has focused more on Latin America. I am from Latin America. So we try to put together our knowledge of political parties, of political leaders and their discourses. So we decided to make a comparison about the narratives of the far right and far left leaders. We use GPT language models in order to analyze all the journalistic interviews in different contexts that these leaders have answered when they were in power and when they were in opposition, depending on this case. So we focus on one topic. You can study different dimensions of the far right discourse. We actually focus on the nationalism aspect of the discourses of these political leaders. And we found some trends that depends on the regions, but some general aspects. And one of the general aspects that share the political leaders from both regions, it's the ethnic component of the nationalist discourse is not as frequent in their speeches as other aspects of the nationalist discourse. Like, for example, the civic aspects of the nationalism or the cultural aspects of nationalism. Which means that when they talk about nationalism pride, for example, they relate this to the economic development of how the political institutions are doing well in this country because we are a great nation, but not necessarily because of the ethnic heritage of these societies. This is a work in progress, but so far for us this is really interesting because we used to think that probably the ethnic nationalistic discourse is more important for the right. And we don't say that it's not that relevant, but we can say is that there are other components of the national discourse that is shared by the far right in Latin America and in Europe. We learned that there are some global trends. The discussion that we have in our countries about one specific party that we don't like, or one specific party that we love, like for example, I don't know if you like a right-wing political party or a left-wing political party, probably the things that we like or we hate of these political parties are not necessarily idiosyncratic of your society, that there are some aspects that other people in countries far from Europe, in this case in Latin America, shares. For example, if you like a specific political party because of the nationalistic discourse, probably we can find a person like you with similar age, with similar profile, with similar income, that have, for example, similar preferences for a political party with comparable characteristics. This is the way that we do social science comparative research, trying to test, in this case, for example, not only the supply side, the discourses of the politicians, but also the demand side, the characteristics of the individuals, the characteristics of the people. If income matters for explaining certain political phenomena, it should matter not only in Greece, but it should matter also in Peru, for example. So this is the kind of job that we are doing. The goal of our research is to have an impact on the discussions about democracy. Democracy is challenged not only in Greece, not only in Europe, but elsewhere, right? Because people kind of behave looking for trade-off. I mean, they are willing to concede certain undemocratic behavior in order to get some things in exchange of that, like, for example, material benefits or probably policy preferences, clientelism, or other goods. Okay, so people regularly are involved into trade-off. I think that, and this is one of the points that we want to make, I mean, democracy is a matter of principles. We shouldn't concede any democratic setbacks in the development of our political institutions. That's why we study the far right and the far left. And exactly what makes them far is that they are not loyal with the liberal principles of democracy. So that's why we focus on this case. When we started studying the far right globally, originally we thought it was a phenomenon exclusively regarding Europe because of, all the history and the tradition of the far right and extreme far right political parties and political forces in Europe. And we thought it was probably some topic that was really interesting for comparativists, but not necessarily for Latin Americanists. But then Donald Trump got power in the US, and then Bolsonaro got elected in Brazil, more than 100 million people country, right? And now we have Javier Milei in Argentina, we have Bukele in El Salvador, in Central America, and we have also far-right politicians that have come third or fourth in other elections in Latin America. So for us, that was surprising in the sense that for a long time we thought it was a specific topic of Europe. And now we have this discussion also in Latin America. And so, therefore, the comparison of what we have learned studying the far right in Europe is very rich for our understanding of what they share with the Latin American far right, but also the differences between these two regional rights.